Before I go into my substantive, right, I want to point out I want to like first characterize what this actually means, right? I have a few pieces of characterization here. First piece of characterization is that this real-time reporting is just really easily manipulated and untrustworthy. And this is because like these people, these news agencies are in such a rush to get these stories. They don't necessarily get the facts right. They don't double check this. They don't do thorough research. They don't do enough research and double checking to ensure they get the facts right and just very easily manipulated. Secondly, these things have a huge devastating impact on people's personal image and reputation due to fake news. A great example being the ISIS brides, where a Muslim lady in Melbourne, her image was wrongly identified as one of the brides, which was a terrorist, and her personal reputation like plummeted and suffered like extremely due to that. Third piece, third piece of characterization. What we mean by prioritization means that real-time reporting will still continue, but rather there will be more slow journalism utilized. What does this mean? This means that like for these breaking news stories, an example would be something that directly impacts your life right now, something that is crucial to know right now. Those things will still be talked about in real-time reporting. However, most of the other news will be prioritized with slow journalism instead. Another piece is news is genuinely the main purpose of it is right is to inform people about like the truth, right, about current affairs in depth, and there's no point making it fast if it's untrustworthy, because then it just defeats the point of the news, because what's the point of having fast news if it's all fake, right? Another piece is that like the truth is just way more important than speed. As I've said already, there's just no point of having this fast news if it's fake or incorrect. And also, journalism as a whole should be about telling the general public about the truth, right, and showing the truth rather than just like prioritizing speed. Whereas in the status quo, many news agencies are prioritizing speed over the truth, as that is how they get the most amount of views and also generate the most amount of money. And now I'll go into my substantive. The first point I have is that it's just better accountability and also like investigations for these scandals, as those scandals can't be feasibly covered in rapid real-time reporting. So mechanisms on how this works, right, is that many of these massive scandals are very difficult to expose and often take months to ensure that it is actually a scandal, right? And that like it is a scam and it's not really just like the truth. And however, if we were to focus just purely on speed, right, this will lead to firstly many people, many of these news agencies just simply won't try to expose it due to like this story is going to take months to prepare, right? There was just no real incentive for them to provide this information when in that few months they spend working on this, they could easily have made like 4 or 5 different news articles about recent affairs. There is no real incentive for them to do it. However, there's a huge incentive for the general public to receive this information, right? The general public really needs this information due to many of the people who are like supporting these companies, right? If it's like, for instance, a healthcare company, right? These people need to be made aware of this. Right. And also another impact it has is that they will also be able to just publish these news articles without double checking or making sure that it's actually true. Right. And this leads to a few issues here. The first main issue is that if the company like if what the company is like actually legit, right? It's not really a scam. Then this is just really horrible for their impact, for their reputation, and makes them lose so many customers due to all of a sudden people thinking they're related with scams. And secondly, they might get these things, even if like they might get these things wrong, right? They might show that like, see, oh, sorry, we got this information wrong. This company is actually correct. Like it's actually like legit, right? This is still really like hard to reverse this damage, right? This damage is extremely hard to reverse because even if a company, like if a company was revealed to be scamming people, for instance, right, and people saw it over the news, even if later on news articles published saying that like, see, I'm sorry for telling the false, right? This is like they're not actually scammers, they will still lose tons of credibility and reputation due to people just associating them with the first news. And even if they, like some people are aware of like that the first piece of news that they received was fake, many people won't because the real one will be like a lot less popular than the first one. And also, just people will just unconsciously not trust it as much as they're like associated with the scams. Second point is on like accuracy. And also like second point I have is on accuracy, right? Accuracy is just far more important than speed due to how real-time journalism is like it's something that incentivizes and has pressure to publish first ahead of others, which can cause inaccuracies and mistakes due to this rush nature of it, and therefore can harm citizens. And if they make decisions based on the wrong info, right? Why is this going to work, right? If you make the piece of mechanism, this is because if people see the news, right, like on something, they won't really go to like read other articles on this because there's just really no point reading it again and again, right? And so like, there's no point. They're just gonna trust the first piece of news they see. And so, meaning these news agencies, right? They will try to get the news out as quickly as possible to be sure that they are the ones that the people see. And this leads to them just not fact checking it and getting many things wrong, such as, for instance, what happened, the statistics, and also the photos of people used as my example, like given with my example, the ISIS brides. Another thing is that like these other news agencies, right, also the same incentive. They also want to get this out as quickly as possible. And what is the fastest way to be able to get this information out? To simply just copy someone else who has done the research on it rather than researching yourself. And in this case, with this news being relatively new, the only other places where other people have done the research is these other news agencies. And so due to them wanting to publish it as quickly as possible, they won't really fact check the other news agencies either and just trust that they're correct and just copy it onto their own sites, publish their own news, copy it of them. And meaning it just like they just spread this false news so quickly because if one person gets a false news, right, it just spreads. Everyone like starts copying off him. Just it's really bad for them. And so, what impacts will this actually have, right? The first impact it has, it just really negatively impacts the individual group, as their reputation will suffer and also lead to them being isolated by people and friends and family if they're accused of doing something bad. If they were, like, for instance, stealing or, like, with ISIS brides, terrorists, right? They are going to be isolated by their friends. Secondly, there'll be polarization caused by this disagreement of information, as some people might have seen the true information, right, while others have seen the fake one. And with no way to prove which is true, it leads to a lot of polarization and isolation between these people and a bunch of conflicts among the people. The third impact is that this public trust in the news decreases severely, as once they realize something is fake, right? They realize this news is fake because they said it. They will start to doubt other things that the news uploads, right? They won't be able to trust the news after this, right? Their trust goes down a lot as the general public themselves can't really prove what is right or what is wrong. And also, finally, this also create a bunch of rumors. As once the real news is uploaded, people who know of it, right? People like might see it, but the rumors will still continue, especially among people who don't really frequently check the news. Rumors could be exaggerated and spread way more quickly than the news, right? And just really negatively impacts the people who are affected by the false news. And also, due to the rumor being spread around, the rumor itself might become even more popular than the real news, due to it being a more interesting topic than the real one, meaning people will talk about it more. And so, with that, I'm proud to propose.
Well, good morning, dear judges and my opponents. Well, today I'm standing here at the first speaker of the opposition side, and in my speech, I will tell about our team's definition of this topic, and then move into our side's model and our side's claim also for our side's burden. Well, before of all, our claim is that news should be something that inform information about what is happening currently around the world. It should be in time, not outdated. Whereas option side supporting slow like journalism leads to outdated information due to its long time of checking and depth. Well, then moving to our definitions of this topic. Well, I want to define and clarify three words in my definition. First of them is news organizations. We believe that organizations that provide daily news report for the public to inform the public about what is happening. It means news organizations. And then the second word is that slow journalism. Well, we believe that it is models that prioritize depth and also verification and usually takes a long period of time to be written and also we have an example such as a week or even a month or even longer, so that is not a news anymore. And the third word is that real-time reporting. We believe that real-time reporting is a shorter and lower developed articles which is often finished in hours with a shorter like edit and period. Well, then moving to our world. Well, our world our world is like this. After an event happens, such as Iran being bombed by USA or a report of a football match, the organization would send a lot of people to write and verify or maybe conduct a survey of witnesses and collect data, which often requires a few days to be written after an event. Well, our organization is that with same event, the organizations on our side would have two or three lower quality work posted within hours when the event occurred. Our team firmly believe that short breaking news should remain being the priority of any new company, and is a way that fulfill and the need of the majority. In this case, prioritizing slow like journalism would let the amount of real-time reporting decrease, thus those like losing its advantage. And our team's version of this debate is that we want to prove that why depth is not as important comparing to efficiency and speed when writing news reports. And the first speaker of the opposition side of our opponent of our proposition side have explained that in our side if we prove like immediate news, they may have a lot of fake news. Well, the opponents said that real-time news creates fake news, but speed is not is not the real cause. We can set simple quick checks for fast news to avoid false
Information.
information. Besides, slow. Wait, what? Oh,
Go on.
rejected. And besides, slow journalism also has its bias or run ideas after long editing. And if we wait for days for slow reports, rumors will spread wildly with no official news to stop them. Real-time news with proper checks can beat rumors earlier, and while still meeting people's needs for immediate news. We do not need to give up like timeliness and completely. Also, then moving to the first main argument of our team. Well, we believe
Point of
that
information.
wait, did you just ask like what is the motion?
I said point of information.
Um, okay. Our our team's first like for our team's first argument is that we believe that people need
You're right.
immediate real-time news to understand the world around them. Well, news loses not time, and news loses its value if it comes out of weeks or months after an event taking place. Well, we believe that it may be correct, it may be long, but those old reports only tell us things that are long finished. They cannot help us deal with current life and ongoing social issues. Well, we need to know that why and what is happening right now.
Point of
While
information.
every information, well, the information I give out is that we believe that people need to connect it with those people need to connect it with the whole world, so we need to read like immediate reports. So real-time reporting offers this immediate information, and it lets us to keep up with ongoing events and make timely decisions on our daily lives. If we only prioritize slow journalism, people can only read delayed news long after events end. Such outdated information become useless for daily reference, and it cuts people's access to fresh, timely facts. Our balanced model keeps real-time news available for daily use and meeting people's basic needs for up-to-date information. And that's why our team still opposes this motion. And that's all. Thank you.
So before I begin my speech, I'd first like to point out a few major flaws and pushes the opposition have made in their arguments. So first of all, they claim that slow journalism leads to outdated information, and obviously this is actually quite false. As you know, this slow journalism, right, is like investigative reports, right? For example, let's say Watergate, right? That was a result of slow journalism. This Watergate, this slow journalism, this example of this report, this wasn't outdated information. Slow journalism isn't, like let's say a football match happens and you take 2, 3, 4 weeks to write about it. That's completely different. That is not slow journalism. Slow journalism, let's say taking an investigative report, let's say you're an investigating company, that's slow journalism. Writing about what it's doing week after week after week, that's like slow journalism. So we categorize slow journalism, obviously, as my first speaker's already mentioned. Let's say, an investigative report done over several weeks, and the info slides already mentioned, it's verified, made sure everything's credible and right. They say that after an event, for example, in their world, their organization will send a lot of people to write and collect data and post 2 to 3 lower quality works for real-time reporting. I just want to clarify that as the proposition, we are saying that we should prioritize slower journalism over real-time reporting. This does not mean we're eradicating real-time reporting. We're just saying we're going to have more slower journalism, and we believe slower journalism is more important to news than comparison to real-time reporting. And the opposition will come out and say that real-time reporting should be the priority of companies, and it's what news organizations, and it's what people want, and the news should be real-time reporting. But news is about truth, it's about showing people the truth. And if you're doing real-time reporting, you're not exposing the full context. News is about explaining what's happening to people. So journalism does it because in real-time reporting, you just get the headline, you just get the the quick clickbait or whatever. You get it. It doesn't have the context, doesn't truly explain it, doesn't actually work. Like news is about explaining the truth to people. While real-time reporting is just quick headlines that aren't fact-checked. They might not be true. They may not be right. They're not. Sometimes they're true, but sometimes they're also not, as the first speaker has already pointed out. And obviously, slow journalism eliminates this issue of not being true and not explaining the context, and makes news accessible, and makes it fulfill its purpose as it's been made to provide the truth and explain things to people. And that's why slow journalism obviously is should be prioritized more than they say slow journalism also has bias, and the wrong way it is. Yes, it does, but real-time reporting actually is highly more likely because real-time reporting they have 1-2 hours to write this. They have the time to fact check it in depth. Yes, it'll have bias, but everything is bias. Because that's just human nature, right? But real-time reporting we see has significantly more chance of this bias, affecting it because there isn't as much time to fact check it and make sure everything is credible, and obviously therefore there's more chance for misinformation. I said depth is not as important compared to efficiency and speed, but the whole point of news, right, is explaining in detail. Making things clear and accessible and easy to understand for the public. That's the entire point of news. So, if we're prioritizing speed and efficiency, we're actually defeating the point of news. The point of news is to be in detail, in depth, explaining events, explaining affairs, explaining, let's say, investigations, into reports into companies, into whatever's happening in detail. That's the entire point. So therefore, detail actually, is more important than efficiency and the speed that they're talking about. Oh, they say if we wait days for a long report in our world, apparently there's gonna be days waiting for a long report and rules are gonna fly. But I've got one main actually response to this is that obviously in our world we're prioritizing slow journalism. We're prioritizing it. We're not eradicating all of real-time reporting. There's gonna still be real-time reporting, for these events that need to be covered. Let's say, a speech by a president or something. There's still gonna be real-time reporting for that. We just have more slow journalism, more of this in-depth explanation, more of these reports, more of these, credible fact-checking. So they say news isn't relevant if it is too old. Yeah, we agree with this actually, but it's actually going to be the same on that side. And news is still going to remain relevant. We just have more in-depth reports, more in-depth explanations into what's happening. They say people can only read delayed news if we prioritize slow journalism. But actually, prioritizing slow journalism just means that we're going to have more and more investigative reports. Companies are going to prioritize them more. Yes, but it does not mean that if real-time reporting is eradicated, we're going to have delayed news. We're going to have this updated news. It's going to not focus as much on it. And they said that their world meets the needs for news in general, but actually doesn't on a few main reasons. First of all, obviously, it doesn't prioritize its depth, doesn't reveal, let's say, the depth and the context that is required for news to be actually news. The whole point of news, obviously, as I've already explained, so this idea of depth, this idea of well explained, easily accessible content, so people can understand what's happening in the world. News is not quick headlines that and let's say a paragraph explanation. It's these long reports. That's what journalism is essentially a main the key part of what journalism and news is. And so now for my substantive. So my main argument and my main push here is that it increases public awareness and creates more slow journalism, creates a more informed society. And so obviously slow journalism, right, is more likely to be correct and truthful. It takes more time, it's verified and backed up by evidence. Obviously, several people look at it and make sure it's true. It's obviously more in depth compared to this quick real-time reporting. And real-time reporting, due to its nature, it leaves out context in favor of speed. So it's much harder to understand the full simulation, situation, even if you watch the news, it's very hard to understand, in depth, in detail, what is going on. Well, with us, slow journalism and this prioritization of slow journalism, this context is explained, the story, the news, whatever it is, explained in detail and in depth. So, it's much easier to understand what is happening. And as these stories are more easier to understand, the public then gains, this greater awareness, this greater understanding of these current affairs, the political situation, whatever's happening, right? As the public, have this greater understanding of current affairs, what is happening, society becomes more informed as a result. And as a result, you saw that a more informed society, a better voters, there's a host more impacts of that. For example, let's say if you're more informed about, what's happening, say the political situation, what's happening, you have better decision making. We see a stronger democracy. These citizens that understand these political issues better, they're therefore more likely to participate in election, really, and we're going to see less, let's say extremism and stuff because they more understand it in general. there's also going to be greater social awareness as people become more aware of these prevalent social issues we have experienced today, such as human rights, inequality, climate change. They explained, yes, they're currently explained in real-time news, but they're going to be explained in more depth, more easy to understand, and more accessible, to the general public, so you can understand, clearly and easily what these events are, why they're important in our world. That's the more slow journalism being prioritized in comparison to, the opposition's world. And we'll see, more increased accountability as these businesses and these organizations, they're more likely to act responsibly when the public is well informed, and let's say, with slow journalism, investigating and so on. And even in the opposition's, best case, where, only the same amount of people, let's say, watch news under the status quo, these same amount of people, let's say, 10, 30, 20, 30%, doesn't matter the number. These people, they're more likely to become more informed. And therefore, they're going to experience these benefits that I've mentioned. And also, it's still a significant number, which is large enough to make a tangible impact in society and make society better as a whole. These people who are more informed, they watch the news, they understand this slow journalism, they're more likely to, spread this to others. Because let's say, they're campaigning about social issues, that spreads the awareness in comparison to their world. There's less awareness, and there's less people, who know about these social issues, they have, conversations, etc., which means, they spread this more, how informed their knowledge. And it means, society as a whole, benefits greatly, becomes more informed, and then we see more and more people experience these benefits. Which means, therefore, our world is significantly better with slow journalism prioritized in comparison to real-time reporting. Thank you.
I'd like to first do some rebuttal for against propositions and second speaker. They mainly claim about stating that increasing in reliability and depth due to the prioritizing slower journalism, this makes it much easier and lead to a greater understanding for citizens. However, first, as real-time news reporting also can make such benefits, as they still be able to inform in great understanding against these information and news. And addition to that, the majority of citizens does not need to know such things as in such great in depth. As my team has showed you in the first speech, that usually slow journalism leads to a very much greater in depth and long time for verification, and such slow journalism will only lead to a delay and outdated information, as this will not only make it harder for citizens to keep track of what is happening currently, and this is make them much harder to engage. As my opponent said, it actually decreases the social engagement on what is happening now. Thus, the point on this does not stand. Now, they propose a kind of contradicts point, as states that slow journalism is just making things much more clear, and it does not slow does not slow too much of the time. However, as we have proposed in our definition, and also as they have claimed that usually slow journalism have to go in deep reliability and depth, and therefore this takes a lot of time, because you cannot simply get here and then say, oh, I can get things into great depth and logically well and reliable in such short time. It is simply not possible, and it contradicts with their own point. And it also claims that prioritizing does not mean eradicate the other real-time report. However, I agree that this is the case, but this will largely lessen the benefit of real-time news report, as it's claimed that real-time news report usually benefit when short and concise way to convey information and to convey a lot of information in short time. And this benefit will largely decrease as the number and time given to such things are largely decreased. My opponent tried to respond to my teammate point on slow journalism leads to outdated information. They say that this is not true, because slow journalism only check the truth and make it clearer to understand and doesn't take a lot of time. This again contradicts with their point being later brief, and also this contradicts with the definition, as the definition says that slow journalism usually takes up a lot of time, as they have to go in deep and reliability. Now, I would like to again clarify that slow journalism usually goes in way deep, and this is not something majority needs. Slow journalism is therefore unnecessary, and this is why people demand news to be a source of information that keeps people engaged with what is happening. and this is the whole point of news. As proposition side, slow journalism largely
Pure.
cannot fulfill this, as they usually requires a lot of time to be in research. And what people want in this case, the majority of people will want a first quick information, second lot of information, because they usually got other things to do and will only have limited time to spend on news, but you still need to know relatively enough amount of news. So quick, short, and real-time news is something that will be fulfilling its need, and is something that majority wants. And even if proposition claim that slow journalism would be more detailed, but that is not something majority of people want. Such thing would only be useful to specific specialists in relative areas. Thus, the fast news and real-time news should remain the priority for the majority. As the slow journalism would only apply to a very specific amount of group. Therefore, it should not be prioritized as much. Well, this allows more slow journalism news. With more such news, people will receive less information and even lost interest on news, since what they receive is outdated and not on the point. Fast news allow people to react faster to disaster. This is my second point. Crises unfold in real time. Natural disaster, public health emergency, security threats, or traffic accidents happen suddenly. People need instant alert to take protective action. Waiting for next day's newspaper or even weekly analysis could be dangerous or even fatal for them. Immediate news creates collective awareness. When information spreads quickly through real-time alerts, entire community can coordinate response and simultaneously, while slow news takes always away the reaction time for community to organize evacuation. That's what is your POI.
You said that some news, such as for instance, the ambulances and emergencies, need to be addressed with the real-time journalism. However, that is kind of what we said in our characterization. We said those things will be used by real-time journalism. Slow journalism will only be used for other matters that aren't
the thing is, when the majority of the news is covered by slow journalism, people tend not to focus and jump over such real-time reports, and also additional to that, usually this will create a mindset that lets every news agency to have the incentive to focus on to make things much reliable and make things 100% true, that they are confident in such things that will be true. This largely decreases efficiency of what they will do. The whole policy would propose that what will create an atmosphere where news agency prioritize quality over time efficiency. Well, under this case, people would be afraid of making mistakes, which is not the case in our side worlds. And this is why this will largely decrease efficiency and increase the time cost to react with such things, and also remove the focus and intention of public on these, and this amplified the whole issues, whereas opposition side completely solve these problems, and this problem does not apply to our side. And with such with prioritizing real time, these lives are safe and people get to react to such better, and this is why we should prioritize real-time report against slow journalism. Proudly opposed.
Ultimately, this debate boils down into two main questions here. Now, which side of slow journalism or rapid real-time journalism provides a better, public preference and safety? And number two, which side provides, a better journalistic quality? And within my speech today, I'm going to be telling you on why we win on both of these questions. So number one, on the first clash of public preference and safety, what does team opposition tell you? They tell you a few things. Number one, that individuals want information quickly. Number two, that a delayed information causes harm. And that number three, for example, based on these 2 points. Now, under the first claim of that individuals want information quickly, I'm going to give you one response to this. Now, number one, it is true that individuals want information quickly, right? However, I think the vast majority of individuals would rather have correct information compared to quick information. Just how incorrect information, but quick, gives a direct harm to them, right? Like simply on the basis of weight, we can clearly see that the harms of quick but incorrect information compared to delayed but correct information, that the harms of incorrect information is going to be vastly and substantially more compared to that of, for example, correct information. Due to how it actually encourages individuals to act rashly due to for example fear mongering caused by real-time reporting, and therefore they actually engage in interactive activities that isn't necessarily going to be beneficial for them. Now, moreover, what else do they say under this clash? They say that a delay in information causes harm. Now, I'm going to give you two responses to this. Number one, a delay in information is going to be substantially mitigated because, as said in our calculation within our first speaker, we aren't going to be eradicating real-time reporting. We are going to be prioritizing it. And therefore, we still have, very practical uses for real-time reporting, right? For example, in really immediate emergencies, in really, things that need immediate attention and immediate reporting, that have really immediate harms for general population, right? We are going to be removing it. However, we did state that a vast majority of this, news covered by things is not necessarily something that's going to be immediate, which is why we still should prioritize slow journalism, right? Because a lot of these things don't need to be reported immediately. And now, moreover, simply on the basis of Wang, as already stated, the harm of incorrect information is going to be substantially and infinitely more harmful compared to, for example, just like rejected compared to, for example, just saying like, oh, it's slightly it's like quick but it's incorrect, right? Because I've already stated through our mechanism that these individuals are more likely to interact with dangerous behaviors, interact with incorrect behaviors, and therefore it's going to cause a greater harm to them rather than just having a delay of information. Now, what do we tell you under this clash? We say that it increases public awareness with understanding of
information.
Now, what did they respond to this? They say by real-time reporting still gives rapid information, which gives understanding. And number two says that you don't need to know such like great detail and effect from slow journalism, and instead this extra detail is actually going to obscure a civilian's understanding, which makes them less likely to understand it. Now, I'm going to respond to why wrong and how to Number one, rapid information has the tendency to be wrong. That's already mechanized and explained by first and second speaker, and it also lacks detail compared to slow journalism, right? Because real-time reports are incentivized by quick and they have a pressure to be reported, release information quickly, while slow journalism actually accounts for investigations and information, which actually leads to more in-depth investigations and a higher chance of being factually adequate and valid, right? And now number two, slow journalism isn't going to actually make it more hard for the average civilian to understand the information, right? It's going to be more factually correct. Like, slow journalism doesn't mean that we're going to throw a bunch of technical jargon or a bunch of really inaccessible information towards the general public, right? It just means that we are reviewing and consolidating the information that we release to the general public, so they instead have a better understanding of what is going around them, the context that's going around them, the context of why this is happening, which can be really useful basically because of further and future events, right? Compared to letting the public know really omitted things. Now, why is this important? Because if the individuals have a better understanding of the environment around them through slow journalism, number one, they have better better voters, right? Because politics is a really foundational part of our society, and politics is in a democratic society, in a democratic environment, politics is shaped by what individuals perceive and what individuals understand. And if these individuals receive a better sort of quality of information, right, then therefore they're going to be better voters, so they're more informed. And generally, if there's a more informed public, I'll take your point of information.
Right. So they still have the incentive to maintain the quality as for their reputation, and therefore the main case that the main case is always correct, and news agency always will make sure that things are correct that they report it to maintain their reputations and reliability and trust on citizens and majorities.
So basically, we're saying that a lot of these corporations, right, they don't even if they do want to, a lot of corporations, they do incentively, they do want to, actually maintain this correct information. However, I think they have a bigger financial incentive for these news organizations to compete with each other, just economically or in general, right, to seek and release information first. They want to create engagement, they want to create interactions, and therefore, even if they do want to create this sort of preservation of correct information, they can't necessarily achieve that, right? Just even if they want it, they can't necessarily always have that, and that's not really feasible in real-time reporting. Now, what do we tell you under the second clash of public preference and public safety? We tell you that basically accuracy is more important than speed, and slow journalism achieves that better than real-time news. Why is this true? Because they what does the opposition tell you about our claim? They say that fake news and incorrect information from news is not caused by speed or real-time reporting, and that instead slow journalism is more inaccurate due to being outdated. I'm going to give you three responses as to why our point still stands. Number one, they don't provide an alternative factor as to what causes inaccurate information, and we've already mechanized that real-time journalism is something that real-time journalism is something that incentivizes pressure to publish first ahead of others, and that's going to inherently cause inaccuracies and mistakes, right? Because they're rushing this sort of publishment of information, even if they want to be correct, and that can really harm citizens, which has to be weighed really heavily because these civilians are really vulnerable, and they're basically making information based, they're making decisions based on the information that they're given. Now, number two, as to why our point still stands, the vast majority of information being reported on doesn't have to be reported immediately, right? Because if it doesn't yield any tangible or immediate effects on the population as stated before, for example, a bomb in Iran from the USA, I stated in the opposition's example, it won't have any major impacts for an individual in Australia, right? So therefore, it is more fundamental to make sure that the information given to the individual in a distant area or something that not be impacted immediately, it's more it's more intuitive to prioritize that the information is actually given to them is factually correct, so they in the future cases when, for example, something can impact them, they actually have an adequate understanding because of this slow journalism compared to potentially false real-time journalism. And now number 3, news and events are recurring, right? You don't necessarily like see it once in a phase. Like a lot of information, which like not a lot of news or events, like even if it's not all of them, a lot of them are going to be still recurring. And if these, slow journalism prioritizes, prioritize like investigations or further information, it's going to be more factually correct, and therefore it's going to be more actually relevant compared to real-time reporting prioritized on the opposition's world, because we actually have correct information. So that's why we should make it taking away by the end of this clash. Number 1, in terms of public preference and safety, we actually prioritize public safety by making sure the information the public gets is correct and they don't interact in harmful or misleading behaviors. And number 2, this is actually part of the public's preference because they get the information that's correct compared to quick information, which correct information has prioritized more. Thank you, and that is why I am proud to negate. No, my phone.
Before I start to analyze these clashes and weigh the both sides argument, first start with 3 clarifications. First of all, the opponents have been misunderstanding the concept of a slow journalist throughout the whole debate. Slow journalist is about taking a lot of time to verify and to find evidence that to support your news and to make sure that your news is 100% true. This period of time requires a lot of time, but throughout the opponent's speech, they're assuming that this will only take a few days. But however, in order for people to verify if the evidence is true or not, it will usually take weeks or so. Second of all, throughout the speech, they are being very exaggeration and over exaggerating our side's case. They kept believing that fast news is 100% equivalent to fake news. Yes, we do not like we understand that there will be like fake news occurring in such fast news, but however, there are alongside the incentive to being fast and to be respond quickly, those news agencies also have the incentive to make sure that things are like 90% correct, as they know that fake news will like break their reputation greatly and will impact their reputation and make people not willing to read their articles and making them less popular. This is why they still have the incentive to make such news reports report as accurate as possible, but just not as accurate, not 100% accurate. The final thing I want to clarify is that I keep saying that they will not completely eradicate outside fast news. Yes, we do not we agree that fast news should not be eliminated completely, but throughout the whole debate, the opponents kept adding a lot of stuff to this category of the choose to use fast news. They rebut our point by saying that we could use they will use fast news. This supports our side, as this is a very soft stance on their case, and this shows that this shows that fast news is way more important in such cases, which supported our side's case of news. We should prioritize fast news. Now moving into the clash analysis. First of all, the first clash is that whether which side is going to fit the modern society better. Now the opponents they believe that there was more accurate informations feeding to those those people and citizens. It will help them make better decisions in places like election, etc. But however, as our second speaker explained in his speech, that the modern society is very fast paced, and those people often the modern society is very fast paced, and because they use a lot of time to get work and to take care of their family, there's a very limited time for them to read news, as our second speaker explained before. Now, this is why long, accurate report isn't that useful in the modern society, even if it is very accurate and provide a lot of depth to certain questions. As usually with that great depth, it requires huge time for them to finish reading them, which makes them which take us a lot of time which means that they will know less news compared to when reading fast those newses. Second of all, those slow journalism is not a second reason for that why it is not appropriate for the modern day society is that the modern day society, along with the fast pace, those situation changes rapidly. For example, Donald Trump frequently changes tariff against other countries. Another example is that with Russian, they kept like changing like a lot of newses, and which means that even if they spend time to get those great depth and to provide a very high quality news, when by the time they post it out, it may be like the time didn't take that much, even if like 2 days after. This could also mean that those news is not appropriate for like the current situations, because the situation changed rapidly in the modern day society. What's your like POI? Okay, so you don't have any POI. So moving on to the second clash. I will move on to defend our side case about fake news. Like this is one of like the opponents one of the major like arguments. This is one of the opponents' major argument about fake news. They targeted towards like saying that our those fast newses will also result in like a lot of like those fake newses and being biased. However, as they explained, bias like is the natural habit of like people. People naturally tend to be biased. This means that this problem will exist both on our opponent's side of the world and our side of the world. What's your PI?
You stated that people naturally have bias, right? That causes potential news to be wrong. How would you respond by saying that? How you haven't responded to, like, how would you explain by saying that slow journalism is going to be more factually incorrect than real-time reporting journalism? Because then that bias.
I did not claim that our side is like those fast news is like more accurate than those slow journalists. I was just arguing that there are such problems exist on both sides, which makes the opponent's argument not that unique. And they may also argue that fake news may happen more frequently on our side, but however, this is likely to be true, but not that like significant. As despite being fast, as I explained, the companies still have incentive to make them accurate, so there will still be verification process. This meaning that for 99 to 90% of those articles, they are still correct and being very accurate. This makes the argument first not that unique. Second, not very not very important, because it is in very little scale. In conclusion, because the opponent's major argument is takedown, and I have proved like whistle slow journalist is not appropriate and does not suit the modern fast-paced society. This is why we should prioritize real-time reporting over slow journalism.
Thank you.
This debate ultimately comes down to two main questions. Which side benefit the majority, the main stakeholder of the debate, the majority of people, every citizens? And also, who can make sure that emergency is widely solved? Well, I would like to first dive into the first questions. First, we have to understand the main will and want from the main stakeholder under this debate, the majority of people. Well, first, the majority of people, they want quick information, a lot of information, and information that is on time. They don't have that much time to read a 10,000 word investigation under slow journalism with deep but outdated scenes. That is not something that they want. However, proposition side, we prioritize accuracy. Proposition, they prioritize accuracy. They thought it's perfect, but this does not fulfill the majority. We do. The impact on majority, the impact on majority. Proposition's impact on majority is that majority of people receive the accurate news, but they're outdated. Well, while this clearly does not benefit the main stakeholders. As opposition side, we clearly benefit them. We propose quick informations, on-time information, and a lot of information since each piece of news is short and concise. We keep things short, and this makes impact on them better. We engage them in a bigger magnitude, and this benefits in a larger scale than proposition side proposed. And this is why our roles benefit the majority of the stakeholder the most, because we both win on scale and win on magnitude. Now let's look at the incentive based on the two roles. First, proposition side, they got an incentive that we overly prioritize on quality, since quality under their world, as we explained before, is the most important things, whereas timing is not as important. However, on our side world, we got a well balance on incentive. We incentive both the timing and quality of news. And what is the impact of these benefits? These benefits, both on timing and quality, has a well balance. This benefit the majority again, as they get to focus on quick and short news every time. Well, now let's focus on the second issues, which side benefits in an emergency. Opposition side, they got the main issues here is that they overly based on quality. They will want to make sure everything is correct and there's no mistakes. This will cause them to react much slower than our side's worlds, as we explained before. And this is and also such highly incentive on quality will remove the focus and tension on such things. And this is why their impact is not beneficial, as it again does not benefit the majority. And again, this is not something that we want, and this causes a lot of issues. Whereas our side's world, we benefit both on scale, magnitude, on the majority of stakeholders. And this is why we win this debate.
In my speech, I'll answer two questions. Firstly, what is more important, speed or truth? And secondly, is the real-time news fully correct? Right, on the first question, whether speed or truth is more important, right? They say that they only see the news way later than it happens, and so the information becomes useless, right? No, not really, as we have said that this news is still important to know. Like, as we said that news are important to know right now, for instance, scores for sports matches, they will still be done using real-time journalism. Whilst the things that aren't crucial to know right now, such as if a company is scamming some people, or if a person is related to crimes, this is going to be published with slow journalism. This is because the negatives far outweigh the positives, as the only positive they have is that they can get a few days earlier. But the negatives are just so much. These people and the groups who are said to be involved in these issues and crimes, when they don't, they have their reputation heavily tarnished permanently, especially in places where not everyone reads the news. As if some people read this news, right, they tell others about it, those people who don't see the news will just believe this rumor as it came from the news. They think it's trustworthy. And also, so as a byproduct, they will spread it to other people. They will tell other people about this false news without knowing that's necessarily fake. And even if the false news is eventually gone, right, it's explained that this is false, right, and they show you the real news, the damage is already done. And it's and in some cases, it's so bad that the rumor has already spread too far already. And this just leads to so many issues for them. They're unable to apply for jobs. They might not even have many friends, or not even be able to form a relationship due to people knowing the rumor, and as a byproduct, don't trust them or think they're related to this. And this is just so much worse than the few positives that they have. Right. And now onto a second point. I don't think opposition really understands what we mean by what slow journalism is and what it necessarily does, as most of their points all come from this. Right? They say things like it's going to take a lot of time, which is true, but they say the only thing it's gonna do is like they're gonna like cover some news that's like important right now. It's gonna be outdated. It's gonna take too long for people to read, and this is all wrong, right? As they've said, right? They say that like the general public doesn't really necessarily need the news from the slow journalism, and this is just wrong. As slow journalism covers things such as police investigations with companies, and if they think it's a scandal, right? And I think this is just crucial for the general public to know, as these things, right? The general public are investing, or like if the company's about like investment or healthcare, many people use those company services, so they need this information so that they don't continue getting scammed. And also, they don't really need the depth of the knowledge they don't need the depth of the knowledge that journalism provides. This is just kind of wrong as well. As I've already said, that it is incredibly important why they need the information, and also this isn't the only reason why it's slow, right? Opposition doesn't really understand this. I think like they've like mischaracterized slow journalism, right? The other reason why slow journalism is slow is because it also like fact checks it. They ensure that what the general public receives is correct. Meaning, and this is true because like um, speed is just not as important as the truth. They also said that modern society is too fast-paced, means no time to read it. No, really, they say it's large chunks of text, but it's not really going to be the case. It's going to be the same format as the normal news, right? And so it doesn't really take that long to read. And even regardless if they don't have enough time to read it, it's still more important. Even if they just read the headline or the first paragraph, they can still be sure. They can be like more aware that it is correct. What they're seeing is correct because this is like has been double checked before by others. Now to my second clash, they say that news becomes outdated due to new organizations having to double check it. Not really, as these news aren't necessarily crucial to know right now, meaning they can take longer to make these news. And also, what is the point of the speed if we receive false news? They also said that like they will in the real-time news, they check the news and ensure it's correct. Not really. There's no incentive for those news agencies to do it as they prioritize speed over truth, right? Because that's how they make money. And so they just simply won't check it because they have no real incentive to do that. They also said that like fake news isn't like fast news isn't always fake news. Yes, but yes, this is true. However, but most of the time it is fake news, and they have said that themselves. Their third speaker has stated that the impacts of the news, that like the real news, is also fake at times. And like compared to the positives, like the negatives of this are just far worse than the positives, right? And also finally, they said that like there's bias on both sides. Yes, this is correct, but there is far less bias in slow journalism due to it being double checked by other people, right? And so this means they can like help reduce the bias in it significantly. So with that, I'm proud to propose.